Hello everybody. Welcome to my channel. I'm Kamen Artist CJ, and today we will be learning why modern anime avoids the One Piece model. You want my opinion? I don't think they really avoid the model. I just think that no other artists have the level of world build. I just think that Oda is a one in a generation kind of author. I view him on the same level as Tolkien, Robert Jordan, and Brandon Sanderson. One of the great ones who can build an epic story on a grand scale.
When people talk about modern battle shonen, there's always this ongoing conversation about influence. You'll watch the newer series and start immediately spotting the DNA of the big three, but usually two names dominate that discussion, Naruto and Bleach. You see Naruto's fingerprints everywhere, the outcast
Yeah. I grew up watching these three new anime competing with each other. It was always Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece. Obviously, you've seen some of my previous videos. You will know which one I prefer the most. But I still like both Naruto and Bleach, even though I think Boruto was unnecessary and Bleach. I'm saying they should have let Kubo cook a little bit more before suddenly cutting the ending.
protagonist, the inner demon sealed inside, the rival who mirrors the hero ideologically. It's a character blueprint that modern shonen still actively builds on. Then there's Bleach. Here we've got the aesthetic influence, the squad hierarchies, the transformation releases. We see the way fights escalate through spectacle and presence. It basically gives modern battle anime its visual combat language. And when you look at the new generation series like JJK or Demon Slayer, these inspirations feel immediate and visible.
Yeah, yeah, so so I never seen JJK or Demon Slayer. I read the first chapter of Demon Slayer and I wasn't really interested. But a lot of people seem to like them. So maybe someday in the future I'll review those series for the channel.
But there's one elephant in the room, which is One Piece, the most commercially successful
Mm, like here,
manga of all time, one of the longest running stories
let's do to now. Let's put it right here.
ever told in the medium, a series that has outsold, outlasted, and outscaled its peers. And yet, when people talk about modern shonen influence, One Piece almost feels absent from the conversation. You don't see many pirate crews, you don't see treasure hunt narratives dominating the landscape, you don't see island to island adventure.
I think that's because One Piece is still going. Actually, you think about it. You put out a pirate manga or story or anime right now. Your competition is clearly One Piece. Really, you're gonna go against a series that it has almost 30 years of established fan base and a lot of a lot of characters and a lot of iconic moments and characters and characters the people still talk about and love to this day. You're pretty much trying to you're trying to compete against. It's like when DC is trying to compete against Marvel. They clearly cannot when it comes to the movies. There's always when they try and make their own universe, they rush things out with Batman versus Superman. They try to build up the team without building up the characters first, and the reason why the Avengers were so popular is because they got the time to show us Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk before they formed the Avengers. That's why it makes the Avengers movies, like you said, because it was built out upon the previous movies that came before. As for DC, tried to trying to rush to the finish line having to without having to go through the tracks. Yes, it that makes sense. And I'm going a little on a tangent, but then miss the point. The manga wanted to come out here and to come out now. It had, I think we'll have to Uh, we got to find some narrative shortcuts to try to compete with the world building of One Piece, and I think that's going to backfire against them. But who knows? Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's just keep watching.
Structures becoming the industry norm. So to me, this raises a really interesting question. How can the biggest shonen of all time feel like it inspired the least amount of modern battle anime? And the answer isn't really that it didn't inspire them, it's that its influence operates on a completely different layer of storytelling. I would say Naruto influenced a lot of the characters and Bleach influenced a lot of the combat, but soon we'll see that One Piece influenced something much harder to replicate, which is world building, narrative scale, and the philosophy of adventure itself. It's the hardest legacy.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. And the world building in One Piece is one of the reasons why it keeps going. It was such a massive fan base. People keep speculating about the lore, and about what happened in the boys' century. There's always theories coming out about One Piece, other and even if so, other has answered some of those questions and completely ruined some theories. People still will want. There's still many questions to be answered. That's why that's what keep that's why people are intrigued. They want to know what happened in the past, what's going to happen in the future, how this is going to affect that, and stuff like that. They keep the viewer engaged with with the series.
To spot in the modern era, but it's also the hardest to imitate. So in this video I want to break down why modern shonen feels so visibly shaped by Naruto and Bleach, while One Piece's influence feels much quieter. So when we talk about visible influence on modern shonen, it's almost impossible not to begin with Naruto, because Naruto created a character framework that modern battle shonen still actively builds on today, and you can break that framework down into a few core pillars that keep reappearing across the new generation. At the center of Naruto's story is loneliness. He's a kid trying to be acknowledged. He has a dream of becoming Hokage, and it's rooted in belonging. He wants the village that rejected him to finally accept him, and that emotional spine became one of the most reusable protagonist blueprints in modern shonen. We see it clearly in characters like Deku.
Okay, I had some complaints about the direction Naruto went after Shippuden. When Shippuden started, when Sasuke led the village, and feel more like me, the focus was more on not shifted from the goal of becoming Hokage to a story about Sasuke and Naruto. And so that I can do my own video about it later. Maybe I'm just a little bit. I really wish we had focused more on the goal of becoming. I really wish the show would have focused more on the goal of becoming Hokage than the conflict between Naruto and Sasuke. They went into a cosmic scale about something akin, like the likes of the Wheel of Time, or like Berserk, or Elric of Melnibelne. About cosmic conflict, only where the two main characters were just a piece of it's just a piece in a board game, and things like that. Maybe I'm exaggerating it, but it feels like that in retrospect. I have to go watch Naruto again so I can I can give a more I can give you sort of more fresh idea what I'm thinking.
From My Hero Academia or Asta from Black Clover. They add different settings and different
Man, the Sunday Black Clover never really took off. You can tell by the amount of you can tell by the amount of fan arts I have encountered. Or maybe I really haven't searched for the finals for Black Clover, but it really feels that between Black Clover and My Hero Academia completely dominated Black Clover, and it was, and I think he earned his place in the big three just for just because nothing else was just because nothing else was coming close. I think between I think let's say One Piece and My Hero Academia were here, Black Clover was here, and everything else was right here. So for default, it was just this. It was just a big tree like this.
power systems, but the same emotional core. A protagonist starting from social or physical disadvantage, trying to prove their worth to the world around them. It's inspirational, it's empathetic, and most importantly, it's adaptable. You can drop that character template into almost any narrative setting and it still works. Another major export from Naruto is the idea of power as something dangerous, something that exists in the tension with yourself. And I'm talking about Naruto's relationship with Kurama. It's a relationship that represents fear and rejection. The idea that the thing that makes you special is also the thing that isolates you, and modern shonen has reused that metaphor constantly. We see the likes of Yuji housing Sukuna, Deku inheriting power that destroys his body, and of course Asta from Black Clover also fits this trope. They all echo this idea that power comes with psychological weight. It's a form of strength as well as responsibility. Then there's the rival dynamic, another Naruto blueprint that reshaped shonen storytelling. Naruto helped to reframe the rival as something deeper. It would be wrong to say that Sasuke was just trying to surpass Naruto, because he represented an entirely different response to trauma. Where Naruto sought out connection, Sasuke embraced isolation, and where Naruto believed in bonds, Sasuke decided to reject them. So this rivalry became ideological, not just physical. And modern shonen mirrors this structure constantly. Rivals aren't just power benchmarks anymore, they're thematic counterpoints to the protagonist's worldview. So when you step back and look at Naruto's legacy, you see that its influence is primarily emotional. It taught modern battle shonen how to write protagonists.
Yeah, so even like, yeah, so even if I say the I would have preferred the Naruto stay to the reach the Hokage route, I still like Naruto, even so I think hmm, how I say this and so like I think the conflict between Naruto and Sasuke was a little drag out, but I understand what Kishimoto was trying to. I understand what the teams Kishimoto was trying to explore. Was trying to explore with his manga. I stood and I still think I still think the Sasuke Naruto conflict was dragged out more than it should have been. And I wish it would have been resolved earlier earlier in the series instead of earlier a little bit about midway through the series and of pretty much thinking like 90-80% of the whole story.
How to frame rivals, how to externalize inner conflict through power systems. It created an amazing plug-and-play character blueprint, one that authors could reinterpret across completely different worlds. And that's
Man, the rooster of characters that Naruto had when the beginning was felt so underdeveloped and unexplored after Shippuden. Characters like Rock Lee never got any chance to never got any chance to never any chance to shine again. And that's one of the things I really don't like about one of the things I think Naruto should be criticized more for not utilizing his character rules in the same way in One Piece or Bleach use it. And by in my opinion, I think Bleach overuses rooster or secondary characters. Naruto underuse his rosters of secondary characters, while Bleach I think overuse his roster of secondary characters. So the point feels sometimes I feel like Ichigo wasn't even a part of the story, and so in some cases. And Naruto and Sasuke were pretty much the whole story, and anyone else got put to the sidelines. But I think all that was, I think all that has managed to find that sweet spot. Uh, um, his main characters and secondary characters all having stuff to do. I think it has to, and I think it also has the we hop from island to island every arc, so it doesn't feel like we have to drag the people who met on the way to the next story. There are some exceptions like the Wano arc when we had secondary characters we met all the way in Punk Hazard, like Momonosuke and Kiemon, but that was part of the greatest story to tell there. No,
That's why its influence feels so visible today. It helped give modern stories a compelling emotional core, and if Naruto shaped how modern shonen writes characters, then Bleach shaped how it presents its combat. Bleach's influence is rooted in its style, spectacle, and presence, and that influence shows up across multiple areas. One of Bleach's most immediate contributions to the genre is something fans would jokingly call drip, but it genuinely helped to reshape character design philosophy. Before Bleach, a lot of shonen prioritized function over fashion. Uniforms were often simpler, silhouettes weren't always expressive, but Bleach treated character presence as a part of the storytelling. You had the captain's outfits, the sword forms, the distinct postures. Every major fighter had a visual identity that felt iconic before they even attacked, and modern shonen absorbed that philosophy heavily. Nowadays, a lot of the bigger battle shonen have a distinct look to them. Characters are staged to look strong, but also cool at the same time. And another major influence from Bleach is the idea of organized combat hierarchies. The Gotei 13 in Bleach was built like a military institution. It had ranked captains, divisions, authority structures. Each member represented a different combat philosophy, and you see this institutional blueprint clearly echoed in newer series like Demon Slayer or JJK. Demon Slayer frames its Hashira as elite pillars, each embodying a specific combat identity. It's a very Bleach-coded structural idea. While in JJK, Jujutsu Society operates through ranked sorcerers, special grades, and institutional governance, a lot of which is also heavily inspired by Bleach in my opinion. But Bleach's most obvious influence comes through power escalation mechanics. It's the release system from Shikai to Bankai. We see power revealed in different stages. And
Man, when Ichigo unleashed his biker for the first time, that was hype as that was hype as hell. Yeah, I rewatched that battle between Ichigo and Byakuya many times, and every time Ichigo went into Bankai, it was always a hype moment. Even though sometimes he got his butt kicked a lot, it was still cool to see.
modern battle anime has iterated on that formula constantly. You see it in domain expansions in JJK and breathing form masteries in Demon Slayer. These are moments where the fight pauses, so that characters can showcase their identity through their power. And that performance aspect of combat, the idea that abilities should feel ceremonial and symbolic, traces directly back to Bleach's influence. So when you look at Bleach's legacy in modern shonen, it lives in the spectacle. Naruto taught the genre how to make you care about the person fighting, and Bleach taught it how to make the fight itself feel iconic. And because combat is such a visible part of battle anime, that influence feels immediate. It's flashy and easy to recognize, which makes it the perfect contrast to what we're about to step into next. So if Naruto shaped the character writing and Bleach shaped the combat presentation, then where's One Piece's influence? Well, I would say One Piece shaped how shonen thinks about worlds. Its influence doesn't really live in the rivals or the power systems. It's more in the narrative architecture. It's about the structural design of storytelling itself.
You want my opinion? I think the power system in My Hero Academia is more influenced by One Piece and stuff because of the devil fruits and the quirks share a lot of similarities functionally. We don't see a lot of quirks. They are the same. We don't see a lot of characters sharing the same quirk or similar quirks. So that's very much the same function as the devil fruit. That no two devil fruits are alike. So why we don't have Haki and My Hero Academia. We compensate with originality of quirks and just the creativity the characters have to implement to use them.
And that's why its legacy feels harder to see, because it operates underneath the surface. Borrowing from One Piece requires something more demanding in my opinion. It requires building an entire living world before the story even begins. This includes political systems, economic hierarchies, and cultural ecosystems. To me, One Piece doesn't really feel like a story.
That's why I think one of the reasons other shonen struggles to keep on going the same link One Piece has got. Like I said, One Piece has such a rich world building, such a rich world building as with incredible stories and characters. Even to this day, Ishiguro just keep popping memorable character after memorable character, especially in the current Elba arc with characters like Luffy and the flashback with Rock Dixabex. Instant iconic characters that have already become fan favorites, and compared to to the history of the whole series. Those characters are those characters are like like a 2 years old at most. What I want to say is that Oda is just he's just a character guy. He always comes up with good characters we can relate to and feel connected to. That's one of the problem, and I think that's one of the problems modern shonen strives with. I can talk for JJK, but I can talk about My Hero Academia. I really don't think I can. Some of the many of the villains, the Horikoshi Kohei has written has stick with me. I think that one of the best villains he has written was Tame, the hero killer, and there's is also All for One and Shiragaki, but not many others stand out. So maybe like Kimiko Toga, and I'm misremembering her name. I haven't watched My Hero Academia in a while. Well, but yeah, some of the main characters from the League of Villains may stick out, but everyone else doesn't stick the same line. Not many other characters stick with people like the characters in One Piece do.
Happening in a world. It feels like a world that exists regardless of the story, and that level of design is incredibly difficult to replicate in a weekly serialization format because it requires long-term.
I think the only other shonen that I can think about they can come close to that same level of world building is Hunter x Hunter, and we already know Togashi is stable that he has and Itogashi. I really think that Itogashi didn't have those health problems. Hunter x Hunter will be re- will have take will be in the same will be in the big three instead of instead of the other series the instead will be in the or it will be in the big three, or it will be just big two, and everyone else is just competing between each other while trying to catch up to those two. Or maybe to catch, or maybe in Hunter x Hunter would have ended much sooner because I think Togashi is really cares more about telling the story he wants to tell instead of selling a spectacle. And they go, well, that's just I just a little just a theory in my head. Feel free to tell me and I'd rather in the comments down below. Also like and subscribe.
Planning on a scale most series never get the chance to execute. And one of One Piece's most unique storytelling structures is the island arc model. Every location the Straw Hats visit isn't just a backdrop for their fights. It's more of a fully realized society. There's a political conflict and a cultural identity. Each arc functions almost like its own contained narrative experiment, while still feeding into the larger world narrative. And that level of setting intentionality is extremely rare in modern battle shonen, where locations often function more as arenas than societies. Then there's the Straw Hat crew itself, because unlike modern shonen teams, they aren't structured around combat roles or rival dynamics. I feel like each member's individual dream feels more personal in One Piece, and they all get a great backstory that ties directly into the narrative. It's more than a group of fighters traveling together. It feels like more of a collection of different perspectives moving through the same journey, and replicating that level of character world integration is far more complex than people give it credit for. So when you look at One Piece's influence, it's more than the tropes. It's about the scale you have to commit to. It asks mangaka to build a living world, interconnected histories, societal conflicts, and a crew whose dreams reflect all of it. This makes One Piece's influence incredibly deep, but also incredibly difficult to imitate. So by this point, the difference in influence starts to make more sense. And this is where I want to mention the modern.
Yes, what you see, yes, when you go and see other channels, they go in deep dives of about the world building of One Piece and other simplest. Other pulls influence for a lot of different places. He really thinks about where he wants. What he really thinks about how this influence works thematically with his stories. For example, like one obvious example, like the Whole Cake Island, the battle between Luffy and Katakuri, where the mirror world clearly thematically Katakuri and Luffy are mirrors of each other, but also draws influence from Alice in Wonderland and through the Looking Mirror, whatever it's called. Let's go and yes, and all that uses those thematic elements from fairy tales from the past to explore these ideas, to explore the ideas he wants to explore the ideas he wants to present in his arts. Uh, when I think of and I think another and when I think about it, I think the fact that Big Man, no, the fact that Big Man is pretty much a oversized toddler is also thematic and also thematically relevant from the aesthetics, the aura borrows from Alice in Wonderland, and in the whole cake arc.
Manga industry as well, because it kind of works against stories like One Piece. The manga landscape One Piece debuted in is very different from the modern one shonen authors operate in today. Back then, long-form investment was more viable. Series had room to build slowly, to establish tone, to let the world unfold over time. But modern
And I think one of the reasons why that model has died out is really also because of Japan's birth rate problem. I remember there was an article or something like Japan hasn't there hasn't been newborn babies in like 6 months or something like that, and that was I read that last year. So maybe maybe they have more newborns now, but the birth rate problem in Japan is a problem that because they had because there are not many kids anymore. They had to because there are not many kids anymore. They need to something to grab the kids now, so they become long-term readers. Related because there's no guarantee that we'll have a bigger our audience in the next generation, and that's a problem that Japan really needs to fix to solve. But maybe also has to do with the influence of social media too. The quick gratification is being rewarded too. But I really wish we can go back to the times where we can take our time to build the story. But right now, everything you have to deliver right away, or pretty much you lose your audience. And yes, maybe someday we'll go back into it, but no. But for now, you have to have a big spectacle right now. Now you want to have a big audience. And I think we got lucky that we got One Piece when One Piece came out when it came out, because if One Piece came out today, it would pretty much be one among both, one among the both, one one among many of spectacle shonen.
serialization operates under far tighter survival pressure. If a new series doesn't hook the readers quickly, it risks cancellation within its first year. So authors prioritize immediate engagement tools, such as fast power system introductions, early rival conflicts, and visible combat escalation, because those are proven retention drivers. And that naturally favors Naruto and Bleach inspired frameworks over One Piece's slow burn exploration model. In my opinion, One Piece thrives on delayed gratification. Its major emotional payoffs are often built across entire sagas. Lore mysteries are hinted at hundreds of chapters before their resolution, and world events unfold independently
Like I
of the
said,
protagonist's journey. But attempting that structure in a modern manga is a gamble, because if the series get cancelled before those payoffs land, the narrative collapses under its own unfinished scale. So many authors intentionally compress the storytelling scope, and it isn't because they lack ambition, but because the industry timeline doesn't guarantee them the space to execute it anymore. There's also the question of what publishers actively push. Modern battle shonen marketing leans heavily on fight choreography, power ceilings, transformation reveals, and climactic spectacle moments. Those elements are easier to promote, easier to clip, and easier to make go viral, which again aligns more naturally with Bleach-style combat escalation and Naruto-style emotional rivalries, compared to One Piece's slower political and exploratory storytelling. And another aspect which I have to mention, which is maybe one of the hardest elements to imitate, is One Piece's tone. It stands apart because of how it feels to experience the world. Tonally, One Piece operates on a level of elasticity that very few stories, not just shonen but fiction in general, are able to sustain. It can be absurd, heartbreaking, political, whimsical, and mythic, sometimes all within the same arc. And somehow it never feels tonally broken. One moment you're watching rubber-powered slapstick comedy, exaggerated reactions, cartoon physics, running gags that almost feel like Looney Tunes in execution, and then suddenly the story pivots into themes like oppression. And to me it doesn't really feel like tonal whiplash, because One Piece does this in a cohesive way. This balancing act is one of the series' most defining storytelling strengths, but also one of the hardest to imitate. Most modern shonen don't really attempt that tonal range. Instead, they specialize in a primary emotional lane and build consistency around it. And the reason why tonal elasticity is so rare comes down to trust. Readers have to trust that the story knows what it's doing. If the tonal shifts feel unearned, the narrative risks feeling inconsistent or unfocused. And One Piece has earned that trust through long-term character investment, gradual world immersion, and emotional continuity across arcs. So when it pivots tonally, it feels intentional. And finally, there's a strange paradox that happens when a story becomes culturally as dominant as One Piece. Instead of making it easier for others to follow its blueprint, it actually makes imitation harder, because the more iconic a narrative identity becomes, the more protective audiences get over its uniqueness. And One Piece occupies such a specific storytelling lane that stepping into it almost guarantees comparison. If a modern mangaka writes a story about a pirate crew sailing island to island, searching for treasure, building a found family along the way, it doesn't.
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, you step into a pirate team adventure, you immediately gonna be compared to One Piece. And even when One Piece finished, there's gonna be a big window when you have to wait before actually introducing a new pirate story, because the One Piece is gonna be fresh in people's memories, and eventually it's gonna and inevitably it's gonna be compared with it.
Doesn't matter how original the execution is, the comparison to One Piece becomes immediate, inevitable, and often unfairly dismissive because audiences would think of it as imitation. To me, One Piece has kind of monopolized that narrative identity, and in contrast, to me, borrowing Naruto's rival dynamics or Bleach's power escalation systems feels more like genre evolution than direct replication. So that's why I feel authors gravitate towards influences that feel easier to remix invisibly. And in conclusion, that's why I feel that One Piece can feel absent from modern battle shonen influence, even while shaping the genre at its deepest structural level, because invisible influence, the kind that requires decades of planning, massive tonal balance, and unwavering long-form commitment, is much harder to reproduce.
Well, guys, that was a good video. Go check out Shounenview in the link in the description, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.